Hello and welcome everybody to another podcast episode. Today's guest is Jason Fox. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me.
So, I'm assuming that most people are going to know who you are. In case someone doesn't know who you are, please go ahead and introduce yourself. What do you help people do? What is it that your business is all about?
Yeah. Um, my business, we run a coaching consulting business. We've been doing this for about 8 years or so. We kind of help people in four main areas. The first one being offer, messaging, and branding. And the second area being client acquisition systems. The third area really being about like systems in regards to sales, because a lot of people are neglecting that. And then the fourth area that we really help people with is scaling. So taking businesses, we've worked with about 2,000 clients or so now. We have several of them, well, almost 100 of them in the 7+ figure range, and we have a few 8-figure, a couple of 9 figures, although I didn't have too much hand in those. And we've been doing this for a while. And the biggest thing for us is like making sure that we're doing the fundamentals. I think that there's a lot of people who talk about, these fancy strategies and all these wild things. And I think that at the end of the day, fundamentals and basics are what matter most in this game.
Cool. We're going to go deep into the fundamentals today. But before we do that, please walk us through your story. What's your journey? Why did you start your business? What challenges did you face? So take us from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, so I've actually been doing this on my email list this week. I've been documenting like each stage of my journey from like $0 to $100,000 a month, and I started this like as I said about 8 years ago, and I graduated from college here in America. I got a soccer scholarship over here, so I didn't really want to do education, but they paid for my ability to play soccer. So I was like, cool, I'll take it. Graduated with an MBA, came back home to Australia. No one would really hire me. Like I was doing everything I could. I really loved business and, knew a lot, had some really good experiences on my resume, stuff like that. But no one would really hire me for the positions that I wanted. And so I was, talking with my dad. We were actually listening to a Gary Vee podcast, believe it or not, both him and I. And he said, Jace, like, a lot of this stuff that Gary's talking about. Why don't you just do this yourself? And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I will. And so, I started a company. It's called JCF Media for my initials. And then within my first like 24 hours, I got a client because I told my mom, told a couple other people, and mom said, oh yeah, someone mentioned that, referred me a client, got a client. We grew that agency. I think we ended up like getting over like 50K a month. And then we started a Facebook group because we thought, well, let's get more clients. Like Facebook group seems pretty good. And we tried to do that, and we actually got no clients within a few months of doing that. But we got a lot of people who said, Jason, like, how'd you build the agency? Because I was just talking about my strategies and, the Facebook ad stuff we were doing. And I got a lot of people asking how I did it. And so I didn't really know coaching or consulting was a thing. So I just put together like some 6-week little program, slapped together. I think I charged like a couple $100, and I gave them like unlimited one-on-ones. It was crazy. And I think like 8 to 12 people, I can't remember the exact number, bought. And I was like, whoa, this is really cool. And one of my first ever clients, he was a dad of 2 kids. He was living in a 1-bedroom apartment with his wife and 2 kids, working an overnight security job, and which is obviously tough. And so we put him on this long extended payment plan, and he worked his ass off. He did everything. He showed up to every single call. Within the first month, nothing really happened. The second month, not so much. And then he cracked $10,000 in a month, and then he cracked 20,000 in a month and 20,000 in a day. And from there, I was like, "Whoa, this is really cool! Like that's cool." He's now in his dream house, like with a 4-bedroom like house out of that single bedroom apartment, and doing what he loves every day. And I think that was like the real moment for me is helping people. A lot of people say is like, "Oh, I just want to help," but helping people feels good. And I think that people need to recognize that as well. Is one of the reasons I do it is I like to help people and it feels good. And then the coaching side is like you can make some really good money on it. So that's kind of how I got started. There's plenty of other stories in between, but that's the journey from the first few years.
Okay, a lot to unpack there.
Mm-hmm.
Let me think how I'll structure this. Let's start with this question. What do you think are the biggest mistakes people make when building their consulting business? Before we dive into the agency, I want to talk about that as well, but what do you think are the biggest mistakes people make when building their consulting business?
Yeah, so I made a post directly about this today. I have a friend of mine who, when I was starting, he was like starting the coaching consulting. He was crushing it, doing so well. He was like doing like $50,000 a month in coaching. I thought he was just the man. He was traveling, doing all this stuff. And I learned recently that he has a job as a janitor, right? So he's a cleaner, and he
Okay.
was at 50K a month, right? And the thing is the reason he has that and the reason that he is there now, and I'm not doing this like to scare people because it's a very rare circumstance, but the thing is that when you are building something is you've got to have two things in mind. You've got to be like, cool, I want to make money and I want to grow this thing, but you've also got to focus on developing and building the skills that you'll be able to have for the rest of your life. You know, the sales pitch of higher education and colleges are like, no one can take your degree away from you. And like, no, they can't, but they can diminish what a degree is worth. But people can't take your skills and your knowledge and all of the things you accumulate along the way. They can't take that away. And so for me, I always can take big swings. I can take big risks because at worst, I could go be a salesperson. I could do someone's ads. I could make websites. Like I could do so many different things because along the journey is I didn't just focus on like, what would that knowing that thing allow me to do? So connecting the thing with money, I'd be like, how can I be great at that? And then money will be a byproduct of it. And so I think the most important thing anyone starting is develop skills and get extremely good at them, and you will never have to have a job. Well, you could have a job, but like sales, you could have all of these different things in your life. And so skill development is the biggest thing. And that's the biggest mistake people make is they just focus on the making the money, which is granted, like you need to do that, but you should be wholeheartedly focused on developing the skills and becoming great at what you do.
Mm. What are some of the most important skills to learn, and how would you go about learning these skills?
Yeah. And so we're connected over on Twitter, and I think that Twitter is great, and I think it's a good platform. But the problem is everyone talks about writing, right? They talk about copywriting, ghostwriting, all of this. And that's a great skill. And I think it's one of the most foundational and one of the best skills that you can learn. But the problem is that these guys who have supreme talent, they know how to write, their copy is fantastic, but they have no freaking idea how to sell. And at the end of the day, sales is the most fundamental thing. Like, you know, people say, well, if you're in a job interview, you're selling yourself. If you're, doing this, you're selling yourself. Like, sales is so fundamental because once you know how to speak to someone, connect with them, and show them that the path that you're on and the things that you're doing are the way forward, then they will be like, cool, well, I want to work with you. And once you have that skill of being able to convince someone, you have that for life and you can sell anything. And so I think that the biggest skill that someone should focus on is sales.
Hmm. How would you go about learning that? I mean, there's a lot of coaches, a lot of courses on selling, but I reckon the best way to learn it is to actually just do it. But obviously, you're going to need some theoretical knowledge before that. So, how would you go about learning that skill, mastering sales?
Yeah, I think that like when people are lower on budget or whatever is just like get in and watch sales videos on YouTube or buy like a sales course. I think that everyone should take a sales course. Get in and read sales books, learn from different perspectives, and then try it. I think Gary Vee said this, like this is one of the reasons I started my business. He said, you can't read about push-ups, right? You just got to do them. And it's the truth is that sales is like that is you've got to throw yourself in the deep end. You've got to fuck up 20, 30 times and you've got to make mistakes, but that's how you're going to learn and you're going to get better at it. So sales for me is the thing that you've got to, yes, learn about and have some basics and some foundations, but then also focus on how can I get better at this? How can I practice this? And you got to practice in real life.
Mm. Sales, fundamental skill. Are there any other skills that one needs to learn to run a successful consulting business?
Yeah. I think that it's like one of the books that everyone should really read is Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it's just such a foundational book is that people don't realize is that everything in this game is relationships, is that the way that you're communicating with someone, the way that you're taking care of someone, it's all about relationships. And business is not actually as much of a business and strategy thing as people think. Business is the greatest personal development journey that you can go on because any personal problems will be reflected in your business 10 times. So if you're running into debt, your business will struggle with finances. If you're struggling for motivation, your business will struggle to grow. Business is such a good personal development game. So I believe that people need to learn how to communicate and have relationships with people, but also on the mindset side of things is that I talked about it throughout this week of like documenting each stage of the journey. And at every single stage of the journey, the most important thing that I could have done is gotten my mindset even stronger and make it so just something that is just a fortress where no matter what goes on in your life, you can keep going and keep pushing forward. So I would say relationships and mindset.
Hmm. Let's unpack those things because I'm noticing it in my own business. The personal growth thing is 100% true. When I'm having problems in my own life, for example, last year I was struggling with motivation, struggling to get up in the morning. And obviously, because of that, the consequences of that, my business stopped growing. And it wasn't until I fixed that by actually working on real life things, not actually my actual business, but working on myself, that I could fix that problem. But how do you go about fixing your mindset if you're like stuck in a rut? I'm assuming that, a lot of entrepreneurs currently they're in survival mode. They don't know how to get their mindset right. So, do you have any strategies? Do you have any tips for these people?
Yeah. So people might like say, well, this is like woo woo and up in the air and stuff like that, like books like The Secret and Manifestation and stuff like that. I get it. It is woo woo, and there's some crazy elements and some crazy things that people say within that. But I really think that you really manifest your reality by the way that you communicate with yourself and the things that you talk, to other people. And so I have the best example I can give of this is there's this guy. I used to work in a warehouse before I started my business. Well, actually, while I was starting it. And he would show up, he'd be late, he'd have all these problems. He said, my bike got stolen. I got into a fight with my girlfriend. She lit my car on fire. And then my ex girlfriend had a car accident. I had to go see her. And then this and then that. And he might seem like the most unlucky guy in the world. But for me, I've never had a bike stolen, knock on wood. I've never had a car lit on fire, and my ex girlfriend hasn't crashed into a pole and I had to go to hospital to save her. And the reason why all of those things haven't happened to me is because one, I don't put myself in those positions, but also because I'm not constantly being in the negative and always accepting that life is just, I'm just a victim of life. Like everything's happening for me. And so if I have a setback, like recently my wife's car, a nice freaking Range Rover, the engine blew out and we had to pay $8,000 and it was a month after the warranty ended. And so it's like, okay, great. But what am I learning? I need to check on the car more. I need to be more vigilant with taking care of it. Whatever it is there's a lesson in there. And yeah, it's an expensive lesson and it sucks. But the thing is just going through and the mindset of always having belief. And I believe that there's one thing that a lot of entrepreneurs have that other people in the world don't, and that's hope. And so the thing is when you go and play like the lottery or something like that, right? You want to be a millionaire overnight. That is when you've lost hope in what you're actually doing will get you to the point that you want. And now, like, look, I play little games and, scratch offs and stuff like that. Like, that's all well and good. There's no hope. But I think that people need to have an unwavering belief in themselves and the effort, I'll figure it out attitude. And that will take you so far.
Mm, cool. I definitely like that. Let's talk about relationships. Obviously, you're not a relationship coach, but what advice would you give there? I mean, you seem to like. I read one of your tweets recently about your wife. You seem to have an amazing relationship, but not only relationships with your wife, with business partners, with other people in your life. What advice can you give there?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something I think about too much, but it's also so like my wife and I, like we don't have a perfect life or a perfect marriage or any means, but the thing is that if we're struggling or if things are going wrong, is that we both look at it and we both take responsibility for our parts in the issue. And so let's say my wife is frustrated because I have to work these hours and, or something like that. It's like, okay, well, I should have worked early. I should have woken up earlier. Or I should have been making more money and I shouldn't have had to have this opportunity. I always take things as my own fault and responsibility. And when that happens is you have complete control over your life. And so if my brother has annoyed me, my business partner has annoyed me, I just go, okay, what can I do differently here? And that might be the case where you have to just, okay, step back and let them do their thing. Is that I think that too many people give away their own personal power, especially in relationships, and they always are in the blame game and it's someone else's fault. Is no matter how frustrated and sad and upset that you get, there's something that you can do and you can control. And it's the same in business. And so for me, it's always about having radical personal responsibility for the things that I can control within any given relationship.
Mm, cool. Let's go back to your journey. Let's talk about the different stages of
Oops, the
scaling a
camera went
business.
off.
Oh, camera went off. You're
Sorry, that
back.
was my fault.
All good. Let's talk about the different stages of scaling a business from 0 to 10K, from 10K to 30K, and beyond. Walk us through every phase because I know you're talking about this a lot lately. Let's start with 0 to 10K. What are the skills you need to develop? What are the mindsets you need to have? And then let's continue from there.
Yeah. So 0 to 10K is really about throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I think that people just want some magical tactic. And it's why it's the hardest people to actually sell to is people who are below 10K a month. Because 10K a month financially, like people will get there. Yeah, it changes a lot. Like if you're not making much money, 10K a month can be a lot of money. But realistically, in a business, it's nothing. And it isn't going to change your life financially as much as you hope or you think it will. But it will change your mindset because you've crossed this threshold now that most people will never see in their life. And now you have something that's validated. And so for me, the 0 to 10K is about trying as much stuff as possible, seeing what works, and then doubling down and doing more of it. It is throwing stuff at the wall. It is posting content, sending messages to people, emailing people. Whatever you need to do to get to that point is just vital. You have to just be able to put in the work. And that is about developing capacity. So developing capacity to work hard. So most people think I'm working really hard when they've put in a 4-hour day. And I'm like, well, I've done that before 6 a.m. Right? Like that's what people don't realize is there's a work capacity that higher level people have. And so it's about developing that. And then from there, once you cross that 10K a month mark, is the journey is really about now not throwing stuff at the wall. It's about picking the thing that got you to the position and the thing that you can do repeatably. And the biggest thing from 10 to 30, I would say, is like consistency and systems. And so it's all about doing the same thing, but more of it and better. It's consistency. So the same strategy that got me from 0 to 10K, which is posting content, send to DMs, got me to 10 to 30. But I was doing it more consistently. I was following my KPIs, I was tracking, and I was doing the fundamentals. And so it's the basics through each of those stages that are important. And now there's a lot I can get into, like we coach on, like what types of content, what offer you should have, what should you say in your DM, stuff like that. But honestly, you throw enough content out there, you see what resonates with people, you send enough DMs, you'll be able to figure it out. So that's the real stage of like that 0 to 10 and then 10 to 30. 30 to 50 is a different game. And this is where you have to, I honestly think this is one of the hardest stage of business because you think you have money, but you don't because the tax man comes along. You think you have money because you might try to spend 3K on ads or 5K on a program or stuff like that. And suddenly your bank account doesn't look so healthy. And it is a place where you have a bit of ego because you've made a little bit of money and you're in like the top 10% in the world of earners. But you don't really have that much money when it comes to business. And so it's a place where you need to control your ego and you really need to focus on your systems and really put the foot on the throat here. I have a client actually who went from they're at 10K and they went to 30K. That was their first goal. And they just didn't even talk about hitting 30K because their heads were just down, grinding, working hard. And then last month they told me they hit 50 and they didn't even celebrate that either. And like, that's fine, right? It's not to brag or anything, but it's the case of when your head's down is you don't ever look up and smell the roses. And so in these stages, it's a case of like recognizing what you've achieved and documenting what you've achieved so that you can continue to do it, but also you know why you're doing it. Because 50K a month, what I did instead of like really documenting it, I don't know the exact month that we hit it, but I bought like a stupid expensive wallet. I bought my wife $1,500 freaking shoes that she's worn once, a 6-figure Range Rover, this, nice apartment on the beach. We had an office. We had all of these different things. And they were not real signals of things that I appreciate. Like I should have taken my dad on a trip to somewhere, or, my brother and I gone away, or my wife and I go to Bali, which we eventually did. Like those are sort of the things that you need to recognize and understand why you're doing things. Because you can't scale beyond 50 if you don't know why you're doing it. Because the money just wears off at some point. And then from there, the 50 to 100K mark, it's a much more high level. It's where you need to understand your systems. You need to be super consistent. You need to delegate. You need to know how to hire. You need to know how to train. But the thing with this process is now you're not scaling through more. You're scaling through better. And so what we did, actually from 30 to 50, that's kind of the case as well, is that we didn't sell more clients. We just sold better clients and we sold them higher package things. And so you need to start becoming much better. And that's the problem, is that that guy that hit 50K a month and now is working as a janitor, he never built any skills. And so he couldn't scale beyond that because all of his results were shit. Out of 100 clients that he signed, he maybe has one good testimonial, someone who respects him. And I'm not saying that to like rag on the guy or anything. He's a good guy at heart. He just was so caught up in the money rather than actually getting the results and why he was doing it. And that's the biggest challenge. And so I think that it comes down to scaling through results and people to get to that 100K a month mark.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk about the offers in every step of the phase. You touched on that a little bit. How did the offers change from 0 to 10K, 10 to 30, and so on?
Yeah. The offers stayed relatively the same. My skill sets just got better so I could add in more things. So originally the first thing was that we helped people with DMs. That was the first thing that we did. And then we realized, okay, well, DMs are important, but when they get on sales calls, they suck. So we started helping with sales. And then we realized, okay, they got on sales calls, but they're pitching them garbage. So we talked about offer. All right, they're getting sales calls with the wrong leads. So we need to work on marketing. And so I think that, and I actually signed a client last night who said, like, I want to teach sales. And then like he like had his credit card and he goes, well, yeah, I want to pay and I want to join, but like, what if I want to teach more than sales later on, but I'm pigeonholed as the sales guy? And I said to him, that's actually totally fine, because sales is assumed that you need good marketing, and who can help better with marketing is someone who knows sales, and who can help better with offer is someone who knows how to sell. And so you can broaden it up. And so that's why I talk about like each stage you develop your skills and get better and better. And then you can showcase what you know to those people. So my first offer was like 2K. Like after we did the silly like $600 one-on-one stuff, we sold something for 2K. Then we went up to about $4,000. Then we went to $6,000, and then we had a 12K product as well. And now our offers that we're like scaling beyond that are actually anywhere from 4K to 12K. Like, and that's really a sweet spot. So we're not the most expensive by any means. You know, people like last night, he goes, oh, well, that's pretty good. And I said, yeah, but the average person stays with us for a year. And so I said, take your payment and times it by 10 months. And he goes, okay, yeah, you do make some good money. So the thing for me is about keeping clients for as long as possible, getting them results so they stick around.
Okay, let's move on to content, from offers to content.
Mm-hmm.
Content is a big part of business nowadays, and you seem to have a lot of expertise on this. So walk us through how content will change through every step of the phase.
I actually think that it's better off not changing as much. Like you need to get more demonstrative the higher you go and showcase a little bit more of your results and tell stories through other people's lenses rather than just your own. But really, the content that I produced at that 0 to 10K a month mark was fantastic because I was just documenting what I was doing. And people were recognizing that that was good. And so a lot of people have said to me, and I've never, ever had this objection, is like, oh, well, like, do you have any case studies? Even when I would change offers and go into like random niches, I'd be like, no, I don't, in that space. And now I have thousands of them, obviously, and I can show pretty much any niche, but I didn't need to because I demonstrated enough competence and that I knew what I was doing. So with content, the first thing you need to do is document the things that are working for you. And not in a like how-to type of way and speaking down to your audience. It's like, this is what I'm doing. Maybe this will help you, right? And documenting that. And then the second thing is demonstrating your competence. And so one of the reasons why, like when I first started that Facebook group, I was getting people who said they want to work with me because I was talking about how I use this Facebook ad strategy to get my client XYZ result. And I just walk people through it. It was really simple. And people were like, oh, Jason knows his stuff. And that's like honestly the best selling point. Is that last night, the guy who I spoke to, I've never spoken to him in DMs. I don't even know if he's liked a piece of content. He just responded to one email, said, this is what I want to do. Let's jump on a call. Jumped on a call, paid in full, right? And so that actually, he did a prepay, but he just saw that I knew what I was talking about. He wanted to know and he joined. And so that's the thing. It's all about demonstrating your competence. And that's through your own storytelling of what you're doing for clients, and then your own thoughts and opinions on things. One of the best content pieces, I believe, that you can use if you want to like mix viral content-ish with actual content of demonstrating competence is talking about a strategy that someone's doing. So like you can go, here's how Alex Hormozy is doing launches or whatever it is. You break down what you think the strategy is, and you're leveraging his brand, but also talking about what you can do. And so demonstrating competence, that's content. That's the element of content that everyone needs to do.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's no shortcut to this. You actually have to get good at a skill to do this. Comes back to skills.
Exactly. It always does.
Always does. A lot of people like to overcomplicate business. I see when I scroll Twitter, I I get very frustrated with some creators who come up with this fancy strategy. This is my daily routine. I do 50 outreach messages. I write 2 emails. I write 3 cold DMs, whatever. I want to hear about your, like, I've seen you talk about, I think it was 4 actions that have taken you from like 0 to 10K, then beyond that. It was just 4 simple actions. So walk us through these simple actions, because I feel like a lot of people overcomplicate this, and how can we implement those 4 actions in our businesses?
Yeah. So for me, it's simple. I kind of put like 4 hats on. You've got lead gen. Sorry, I got a finger injury. Lead gen, lead nurture, lead conversion, lead retention, and upsell. And so those 4 things are the categories that you need to focus on every single day. It's like, cool, I need to wake up and go, how can I get more people to see my stuff? Then you think about, okay, how can I get those people who are seeing my stuff to be more interested in wanting to work with me? Then the lead conversion. How can I get those people who are seeing my stuff and liking it, getting onto a sales call? Cool. Now that I've got that, how do I get my clients results so they bring more people in at the top? And for me, it's that simple. And that's just like the 4 core functions of any business: lead gen, lead nurture, lead conversion, lead retention, and upsell. And so if you nail those 4 things, then your business is going to be super easy. And something you said earlier is about like how you see these like routines where someone says like 20 outreach and 1 email, is I actually think that that's not a bad thing, is like nailing it down to just specific tasks. We just call it a daily actions SOP. And if you can get all of those tasks done every single day, you'll be able to grow your business. You just need to do the simple things, but most people want to overcomplicate it and believe that there's some secret. Really, the secret is knowing more and like understanding what type of content resonate, and being really into the market and understanding who your person that you're going after is. But at the end of the day, it's just all comes down like success and winning is just a bunch of steps done in the correct order and the correct way. And so for me, it's those 4: lead gen, lead nurture, conversion, retention, and upsell.
Okay. How do you go about each of these?
Yeah. So the first thing is like lead generation. Is pick a platform that you like, right? So I think that Twitter is a great platform for growth, but it's very difficult to actually manually grow, because you've either got to do comments, you've got to follow people, or you've got to like make sure your content's super viral, which is difficult. I would prefer people pick a platform like Facebook or LinkedIn. And the reason why is because you can add 20 friends a day, you can add 20 connections on LinkedIn a day, and that's your lead gen taken care of. You don't need your content to go viral, because it probably won't, because it probably sucks in the initial. And so you're basically forcing people into your world. Is I've had these clients who've gone like, I don't even know how I found you, but now I'm paying you 10 grand. I'm like, yeah, that's the point. Like, that's fine. And so you want to get these people into your world. So that's what I would do. And then like, I know people hate on the 100 comments a day or whatever, but if you have nothing else to do and you don't know how to get more clients, get in front of people. Like, instead of commenting under big influencers, because yeah, you might have one go viral, you go under the big influencers, you open up 100 people who've commented on them and then comment on those and like actually connect with the person. That's it. So lead generation, that's what I'd focus on. Obviously, as you get higher level, there's ads, there's content strategy, stuff like that. Now, lead nurture is just nurturing the conversations between the people who have come into your world. So, hey, appreciate you connecting. Like, how you doing? Just starting as many conversations as possible, 20 to 30 of them a day, and nurturing them. That also goes into creating content for them specifically. Above all of this is creating a dream ideal client. So it's funny because I have some of the biggest names on Twitter are actually like clients of mine. And I tell my team like a week before this person became a client, as I said, I'm going to sign him as a client. Watch this. And every single piece of content for that week was directed at him. I wasn't tagging him. I wasn't saying anything, but I knew his pains and problems. And so I started posting content specifically for him. And what would you know? He joined, but then 2 to 3 of his friends joined as well, or 2 to 3 people at his level joined, because people aren't unique as they think they are. and he has those similar problems. So making sure you understand who exactly you're going after and creating content specifically for them, because thousands of people will have the same problems. Then the third thing would be lead conversion. And this is where the rubber meets the road and where most people neglect it. Half the people don't even have a CRM. Is when I was starting, I couldn't afford software. So I'd either get 10 free trials with 10 different Gmail accounts, or I would just use a Google Sheet. Write down every single person you speak to, put their URL in there, and then you check in, follow them up 4 times, make sure you start a conversation. So getting people on the phone is the next thing. Then on the phone, you need to develop the sales skills, which I talked about, but just having as many of those conversations. The thing is here's the easiest sales framework that you can ever use. It's called reality, results, and roadblocks. So reality is what's going on right now for them, where they're at, what's happening in their business, revenue, stuff like that. And then, so that's the reality. Then results, what do they want to achieve? What's their goals? Where they want to take this thing? And then the roadblocks, what is preventing them from getting that reality? And so the thing is that you're putting a frame in there, and excuse my finger here, but you're putting a frame of like reality and roadblocks, and the results is that in between where you need to move. The results is what they want. And the roadblock is here. So you're painting a really good picture for them, and you're painting the gap of where they're at now and where they want to be. And then you say, well, look, I think we can help. You tailor make a solution to whatever their roadblocks are, which you should know ahead of time. And you've got a sale right there. Then the fourth thing would be that lead retention and upsell. And so every day, I still have one-on-one relationships with all of my clients where on WhatsApp, I talk to them, I know their name, know their offer, pretty much everything about them. And I just follow up with them, see how they're doing, see what they're struggling with, what they need, creating content for them, creating new assets for them, stuff like that, and making sure they're happy. And then look, not everyone will be. That's just the reality of this game. But my worst client will say the same thing as my best client. And that's like, I always care and go above and beyond. And so the person who, maybe didn't get results, they'll say the same thing as the person who got the best results. And that's the most important thing, is because you can't always control the results because it largely comes down to them. But if you care enough and if you're focused on them enough, you'll win.
I like that. One thing I wanted to ask you about, because I feel like this is kind of my Achilles heel, just being open here, is DMs. I struggle a lot with DMs for some reason. What is your mindset when DMing leads, prospects, and how do you go about those conversations?
Yeah, I have a really simple framework for this. Is like, in terms of reaching out, you just need a response. That is all you need to do. And so to get a response, all I do is like context, compliment, connect. And so context is why are you reaching out? Like, what the fuck are you here for? And don't say sorry for reaching out, because that just sets the frame off horribly. Is you can just say like, appreciate being connected on here, or I love the exchange in the comments. Really appreciate your insights. How are you doing? Connect. And yeah, it's a difficult frame because you can't transition to business right away, but you want to just start the conversation and engage with it. Here's a tip that everyone needs to know, is that the algorithm favors DM responses more than any other factor. And so if someone responds to your DM, they're going to see your content. And that's why content's the first thing we do every day, because when we start getting responses, they're going to see that content and come back and actually respond or resonate with the content and want to work with you. So the first thing is that, context, compliment, connect. Then from there, we have an assumption that we call a market assumption. And so by knowing your ideal dream client, you already know what they're struggling with. And so you can say like, hey, look, I noticed you have your X profile set up as a lead gen system. Like, how's it all going for you, man? I'm curious. And the answer should be negative because you know that it might not be working. And then you can transition into a business conversation from there. You're only allowed to ask those questions because you've built enough authority with your content. And the problem is that people will go, hey, you want my free guide? And I'm like, I don't give a shit about your free guide if you've never told me the path to be a billionaire. I don't know who you are. There's no authority, right? So you've got to come from a place of authority. Is that there was this girl who copied my content word for word. She got 100,000 views and signed 10 clients from it. I got 1,000 views and signed 1 client from it. She copied it word for word. And I'm not mad at her because it came from authority. Right. And maybe she didn't copy it, but I mean, it was word for word, so she probably did. But like maybe it was a team or something. I don't hold it against her. Who it comes from matters just as much, if not more, than what you are saying. And so you need to come from that place of authority. And the only way that you become the who is by having the skills. And so Hormozi will post something like, go to the gym. And everyone's like, oh my God, what amazing advice. Whereas like you and I would post that and people are like, you guys are idiots. Of course we go to the gym. right? So who matters a lot, and that authority frame is really important. And you always need to be the authority frame within your conversations in the DMs.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people try to rush that. They think they have that authority status from the start when they first need to build something, document their journey, as you said, and build those skills to,
Exactly.
show people that you're good at what you do. Okay, one thing I'm very interested in, because you told me you were working with a lot of very successful people, some in the nine figure range, a
Yeah, a
couple of
couple
them.
in the nine figure. So yeah, 100 million plus. I mean, we actually have like 4 clients in that range. We're not the full reason for it. Like, don't get me wrong, but we work with those people. Yeah.
What do you think separates those people from us normal mortals? What do you think separates those high performers from other people?
It's really interesting is that the the thing is that someone at 9 figures will actually say that is what you just said. Like, they believe of themselves as mere mortals. And so this guy that I know, he was I was making like 20K a month at the time. He was doing about 100K a month. And he saw some of my content. He resonated. He reached out, paid for a call, then paid in full right there. And then he said, like, scrap all the coaching, keep the money, but I want to partner with you because you know what you're talking about. And then we were partnered. We were doing some great things. We were making some great money. Then he invested 25K in learning about a specific mindset thing from this high level guy. And he would study that. He would wake up at 5 a.m., would start work at 7, but for 2 hours he would study all of that stuff. And so the thing is, he was a lifelong learner and he was committed to improving himself in every single area. He would hire a
Mm,
personal trainer, hire, someone to cook his food, all of that. And the thing that separates these people is that they treat everything like they're an elite racehorse, if you will. And if you ever see, like, watch what an elite racehorse, like, their coat is shiny, they've got the best food, they've got the best comfort, everything is the best. And yeah, okay, we can't invest in all of that, right? Like, that makes a difference. But treating yourself, your business, and your body with that elite racehorse mentality is the biggest thing that separates these guys, is that they will not waste a single second and they will not do harmful or negative habits. And they can have fun. Like that guy who I was just talking about, he'll go out for the weekend and have a great time, but he also considers himself a normal person. We were in this group of entrepreneurs. There was 8 figures, 9 figures. I was there at my little 7 figures at the time, I guess. Like, so I felt small in comparison. And I invited my friend who, he just works a normal job. He brought his girlfriend. It was actually just all guys there, because he was out with his girlfriend for dinner. And my friend, who was the guy who's doing 8 figures now, he sat with my other friend who had nothing to do with business. He wouldn't gain anything from him. And he just talked to him. They talked about various stuff, asked about his life, all of that. And he was super curious. And it really was eye-opening for me, is that all of us, the 7-figure guys, were like trying to work deals and stuff like that. Where this guy who's at 8 figures is speaking to someone who there's no benefit, right? Like, you can't see it. The funny thing is, they came back later and they actually worked on a deal that will be 8 figures together, those two guys. And so
Wow.
that's the thing, is like, everything is an opportunity. You've just got to not see it for the first step. And what people say, it's second order consequence. It's the first order of consequence. I speak to this person, I get a sale, right? What's the second order of that? Is I speak to this person, okay, maybe I get a sale, but then they become a partner and then we can grow something bigger. And those bigger guys see that opportunity. And so he hired me to coach him. And I was like, cool, I'll make 5K. And I didn't see any more way to make money off him. And then we partnered, we did a launch, and we did 100K. And so that's what he saw. I didn't see that. And so I think
Mm,
that that is one of the biggest separators for those bigger guys, is they're just constantly thinking about the future, but with no real intent to make it happen right away. And it's long-term thinking and the
mm.
$1 million racehorse.
Interesting. So it's a combination of patience in a way, thinking
Yeah.
into the future, being able to kind of predict the future, obviously not with 100% accuracy, but looking into the future, and just self care, I guess you could say, or self respect, treating
Yeah.
yourself like
Self-respect is the big one.
self respect.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I'm gonna need to think about that. But yeah,
Hmm.
Jason, you're great. Thanks for coming on.
Of
Thanks for
course,
taking
man.
the time out of your day to be here. And yeah, do you have any plans for the future? Is there anything you want to tell people about?
Not right now because it's under wraps, but it'll be coming out soon. So we'll see.
Everybody, check out Jason's profile, check out his newsletter. It's great. And yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.